Today's guest makes $250,000 a month doing pretty much nothing.
Some months I was making like 200K a month, 300K a month. But if you want to get past that, you really need like something else.
Born in Vietnam, he immigrated to the US with hopes of chasing the American dream. But after finding a stable job with an $80,000 a year salary, he abandoned everything to become a YouTuber.
And I really hated K through 12. When you don't have friends, then you're not worried about social pressure. It just wasn't as weird for me to like start a YouTube channel.
Today, he's amassed nearly 2 million subscribers and generated millions of dollars exploring topics like corruption, conspiracies, and power.
All the evil stuff they were doing back then is still happening today. Human nature hasn't changed at all.
In this episode, we'll dive into the process of building and scaling a faceless YouTube channel, explore his views on evil corporations and modern conspiracies, and uncover the dark mystery of who really runs the world. What's the most money you've made from a YouTube video?
Probably
Jake Tran. Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Been a fan of your channel for a while. We're kind of, I used to do like a similar niche with the documentary style YouTube videos. So it's really cool to finally meet you, man.
Totally.
Yeah, so a good place to start here. How much money has your YouTube channel made you?
Upwards of like, probably less than 10 mil, but in like the multiples of millions, yes.
Less than $10 million. And how many hours do you work a day?
You know, at the start, I was doing everything myself because I stubbornly believed that no one could edit better than me, no one could write better than me, no one could make the thumbnails better than me. But once I finally got past that limiting belief of like, you know, the artist mindset where you have to do everything yourself, I started outsourcing each part of the process of the creation of a faceless video. And these days on the channels, I probably only work around maybe 2 to 4 hours a day.
Gotcha. Okay. So you have 3 channels right now? Or I guess you work with a bunch of channels as well?
Yeah, 2 main channels. So I have the Jake Tran channel at 1.8 million subscribers. Evil Food Supply, my second channel we just crossed 300K subscribers. And there's a few other channels that I'm building right now and I advise on too.
Gotcha. So for the main channel, is that, would you say, an hour a day?
Yeah, probably like an hour a day, around there.
Got it.
And that's usually, yeah, people ask me this a lot, like, what do I actually do? I mainly think about, you know, what videos do we create next? What's the next video idea? I decide on that. I review when my writers come up with the outline for the video, like a summary of what we're going to talk about. I review that just to make sure everything's in the right place and we mention everything we want to mention. Then I review the final script. For my main channel, since I still use my voice, I record the voiceover. That probably takes like 30 minutes to an hour. And then I review the final edit. I give some direction on the title thumbnail. I review the final title thumbnail before it goes live. And that's pretty much it.
You said when you first started going viral and getting kind of consistent income, you scaled the channel up to maybe $30,000 a month. And what kind of took it to that next level? You mentioned the limiting belief, like the artist mindset, but what were all the moving factors?
Yeah, so once I finally had my first video that did well, growth was like pretty fast. After that, I was able to go up to like 15, 20K a month, I believe, after just a few months. But by then I hit a ceiling where I really couldn't break past like 20, maybe 25K a month. And it was because I was doing everything myself. So I was working like 10 to 12 hours a day, because I was doing the entire process myself. And like I mentioned earlier, I stubbornly believe that no one could do it better than me. Like, how could anyone write a video better than me? How could anyone edit like one of my videos better than me? And it wasn't until I met a business mentor. His name's Arvid, and he comes from the pure business world. And he was a fan of my channel, and he started explaining to me that, you know, if I didn't figure this out, if I didn't take myself away from the process, if I didn't disconnect, you know, how many hours I worked from how much money I made, it would just be another job, and eventually I would get burnt out, just like I did with my other job. So from then on, I slowly started outsourcing each part of the process of making a faceless video. And because I was still like kind of nervous about it, like, you know, what if I mess this up or whatever, or what if they can't do it better than me? I specifically outsourced the easiest parts first. So I believe I first started by getting like a virtual assistant just to take care of like minutia tasks. And then I hired an audio editor who takes my raw voiceover audio and trims it down into the final voiceover file. So that was pretty easy. And with every step that I outsourced, I gained a little bit more confidence that, hey, there's like 8 billion people out there. There's definitely someone that can, edit better than me. So next up, I outsourced the easiest part of the video to edit first. So like the last 30 to 60 seconds. So I hired a video editor. I made sure the work they were doing was good. Like it was up to my standards. And then once I saw that they could do it, I then outsourced like the next minute of the video. And eventually I got up to the point where the entire video wasn't being edited by me anymore. And that saved me so much time. And then I moved on to outsourcing like the thumbnails and then the writing itself, to where today, I kind of view myself as like the master chef, where I just make sure the food comes out good.
I've heard you chat about that process before of kind of going backwards to forwards. Can you explain to people wanting to start YouTube channels or just do social media in general, why it's so important to outsource like the reverse of the video? Like you started with the last 30 seconds, then you did like the last 5 minutes, then eventually you got to the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think if you're already creating content and you're already making money from it, and you have this like artist limiting belief, I think that's a good place to start, where you just outsource the easiest parts first. That way it's not so overwhelming, and you can prove to yourself that it's possible to keep up the quality while still you actually not doing the work yourself. If you're starting from absolute scratch and you have like zero desire to learn video editing, because it is like a good, decent skill that you're gonna have to learn, it's totally okay to outsource the entire thing right from the start, since you don't have like a style, you don't have an existing personal style that you're trying to like mimic. So those are my thoughts on it. Does that answer your question?
I guess more so, like, why would you leave? Like, why do you consider the end of the video to be less important than the beginning of the video, for instance? Yeah.
Yeah. So I view everything as happening in a chain, where on YouTube, it's not just the video itself that's important. First, it's the channel idea, like how your channel is positioned. Then it's the video ideas you choose. Then it's the title thumbnail, because unlike TikTok or Instagram, on YouTube, you have to make a conscious decision on what video you're going to click on next. Mm-hmm. And the main tool we have to determine that is the title and thumbnail.
Would you say thumbnail is more important than the title?
I think they work together, because a really good thumbnail with a wrong title cannot work. A really good title with the wrong thumbnail can also not work. But like an okay thumbnail with the right title, that could be like a really good offer that people really want to click on. So they really have to work together. So when I'm judging a thumbnail, I always have like the title in place, just to see what they look like together.
Yeah.
Because I think they work off of each other, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. And then what's the next and most important part after title thumbnail?
Yeah, so once they actually click on your video, then you have to hook them in with the first like 30 seconds, 60 seconds of the video. So I call that the hook. And the goal of that is to just get them as excited as possible, get their emotions as high as possible, so that they're actually invested to stick around to the rest of the video. So I think of it as like leaving them on an open loop. So kind of like in a movie or a TV show, something happens at the start of the movie and it leaves you off of an open loop where you have to watch until the end to figure out how it concludes. That's how I view like structuring a video. So kind of like if you think about the Dark Knight movie, it starts out with that famous scene of the Joker doing that bank robbery. So it leaves you on a giant open loop where you have to watch the rest of the movie to figure out like what's actually happening.
That's interesting. So kind of along the lines of thumbnail creates curiosity, title complements the thumbnail and creates even more curiosity. You click it and then you get a little bit of that interest kind of answered, but it also creates a new question. So creating good YouTube content is a mixture of like question, answer, like dopamine hit, question. Would you say that's kind of a good way to think about it? Or just leaving an open loop of something that keeps you watching?
Yeah, leaving an open loop. Like the title thumbnail leaves you on an open loop, then the hook makes you watch the next part of the video, then the next part of the video makes you watch the next part. And maybe at the end you have a call to action to watch another video on your channel.
What's your advice for making more money on social media?
My business mentor explained this really simply. He said, when something's making money, you just do more of that thing that's making money. So in my case, my videos were making a good amount of money. Like, I think it was around like 5K in revenue per video when I was first starting out. So I was making like 4 videos a month. So I was making like 20K a month. So if you want to make more money, then you just increase what's already making money. So you upload more, ideally keeping the same quality. And that's literally all I did. I throughout this whole like automation outsourcing process, I was able to increase my uploads to maybe double, 8 videos a month. So because I was maintaining the same quality, I was now making 40K a month, doubling my income without necessarily putting in double the hours.
Got it. And where did the decision come to do 3 channels as opposed to 1 and just doing like an upload every single day?
Yeah, so I view every channel just like any other business. Like every channel is its own brand. So like the brand of the Jake Tran channel is like these contrarian, kind of like 48 Laws of Power type videos. But I started noticing like other channel opportunities out there, like other channel ideas that I could start. But if I were to post the same videos on my main channel, then it just wouldn't really fit the brand. People are coming to this channel expecting one thing, so you want to keep delivering on that one thing, just like your podcast, for example.
That makes sense.
On top of that, I also wanted to diversify my income a little bit more. Just having 2 different channels growing at the same time, that just offers me like more options. 2 different income streams. On the other channel, we have like this product now, Evil Good. So that's another income stream that I couldn't really start on my main channel. So yeah, I just saw like other really good channel ideas out there that I really wanted to start, but I knew they wouldn't really fit on my main channel.
That's interesting. So would you say you're really big on segmentation when it comes to social media? Like this podcast, for instance, I posted it on my crime channel, which was a mistake in hindsight. But how do you decide what videos are like, okay, this doesn't fit with what the viewers like, this needs to go on another channel? Do you have any process for that?
Yeah, so I've learned a lot about branding throughout this process, and at the most fundamental level, a brand is simply a promise. You know, the promise of a Toyota car is you're going to get a really reliable Japanese car, and nothing more, nothing less. And a channel is the same way. Every channel is a promise. The promise of the Jake Tran channel is you're going to get these contrarian 48 Laws of Power type videos. And the way you build a brand is by continually delivering on that promise over and over again. You know, a lot of people give Taylor Swift a lot of shit for, basically putting out the same albums all these years. But that's exactly the point. That's her brand. People come to her for these teenage heartbreak type songs. And she is at the top of her game. She's like the biggest pop star right now because she's the best at continually delivering on that promise in a new, fresh way for her audience. So a channel is the same way. If I post like a podcast video on my main channel, that completely goes against the promise of the channel. So you should just start a different channel to do that.
For sure. Yeah. That's interesting, the deviation. Like I guess more specifically, like so you had a really viral video talking about Nestle and like how it's an evil company. And then now you have this channel that's related to kind of the food industry, right? If you made that video tomorrow, would that video go on the current Jake Tran channel, or would that go on the Evil Foods kind of
The Nestle video, I would keep it on the Jake Tran channel because I more so talk about the business of Nestle versus like the actual health implications or why it's unhealthy. If I were to make a video on the Evil Food Supply channel about Nestle, it would be more about like why their stuff is unhealthy, all the toxic stuff inside their ingredients and stuff like that. Versus the Jake Tran channel, it focuses more on like the money and power aspect of it.
So you're kind of thinking about what the audience gets out of your videos rather than the topics themselves. So they watch the Jake Tran channel for, what would you say?
Like money, power, war, crime, 48 Laws of Power, that kind of thing.
Okay, and they want to learn about those topics.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Nestle wouldn't fit inside of that because it's more about, okay, that makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah. And maybe a good example is like how I came up with the Evil Food Supply channel. So I was really getting into like alternative health just for my own sake. Like I want to improve my health. And I noticed that on the alternative health space on YouTube, it was usually either, like old white doctors talking to the camera, and nothing wrong with them, but it was just really boring to watch. Yeah. It wasn't very inspirational either, or emotional or dramatic at all. And the other segment was like young white girls talking about alternative health, which again, nothing wrong against them, but I couldn't really relate to it as like a male. So I saw that there was a giant gap in the marketplace for high quality Faceless videos about alternative health that were more in like a documentary format. And it was just such a big gap, like such a big no-brainer to me that I just had to create the Evil Food Supply channel.
How did you know it was a good opportunity though? Were those videos still getting views? Was there a lot of SEO?
I think there's 2 worlds on YouTube. One world is where you try to go viral right when you upload the video, like 1 million views in a day or whatever. The other world is ranking for keywords like SEO. So my world for these channels is trying to go viral. So I don't really care about SEO at all. It was more that I saw that these videos from these other channels that were pretty boring, they were going like super viral.
Really? Okay.
Like Dr. Eric Berg, have you seen him?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, his videos get crazy amounts of views. And yet there was no like higher production quality channel in that niche. So I saw like a really big gap in that sense. Another way to think about it is, if you were to go to New York and you want to open up a restaurant, would it be a good idea to open up yet another pizza shop? Or should you look at what is the market of restaurants out there and what food is not being offered and offering that? So that's kind of how I view finding a really good like channel opportunity.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a big reason my crime channel worked originally, the opportunity I saw there was true crime is majority like women speaking to the camera, like maybe doing their makeup or just like telling a crime story. And there was one guy, Mr. Ballin, he's maybe in his 30s, like Navy SEAL type. And I was like, oh, I don't see any like 20-year-old young people talking about this topic. So I feel like there's an opportunity here. So that's interesting. You think of it the same way.
Yeah, exact same thought process. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as hiring talent goes, why are employees overseas better than American workers?
So, that's a really great question. So most creators or like YouTube channel owners or whatever, when they go about outsourcing, their goal is to find like this jack of all trades that can just do everything for them. Like just one golden employee that they pay a lot of money and they can do the titles, thumbnails, they can do the video editing, they can do the writing, they can do all these things and manage everything.
Because they can do it and they think other people can do it.
Exactly. But the problem with that is that, number one, they're really hard to find, these jack of all trades types. And on top of that, if you find someone like that, you're going to have to pay them a lot of money. And then your entire business, instead of being dependent on you, now it's dependent on them. This one single point of failure. Whereas I took the exact opposite route. Instead of trying to find like one single jack of all trades, I broke the process of creating a Faceless video into its fundamental parts like writing, thumbnail design, video editing, audio editing, etc. And I just hired for those specific roles. And yes, you can totally do that in America, but the problem is the rates here are really high. And on top of that, culturally in America, employees, they're always like their current job is always like kind of like the bridge to the next opportunity. They're always chasing the next thing. Whereas in somewhere like the Philippines or South Africa or even in the Middle East, Africa, all over, like their entire dream is to have a stable remote video editing job that pays them double, triple, quadruple what a job that they can get in their home country, where the quality of life is way better because like the jobs in their countries are really terrible. So them working for you is like their dream job, whereas here, them work like having an employee that works for you, it's like their stepping stone. So they're not super motivated in America. They're not as hardworking, whereas over there, it's like the exact opposite.
Have you found any correlation between talent level and how much you have to pay that employee?
There's like going market rates for each role. So like a really good video editor, you can get one that's really solid for $6, $7, $8 per hour. Other roles I found like have kind of like a going rate like that too.
What was the hardest role to outsource, would you say?
Probably writing.
Likewise.
Because number one, there's no pool of YouTube writers out there. Really, the only writers you're going to find online, the only jobs that they've been able to work are like blog writing jobs or SEO writing jobs, where it's completely different from YouTube writing. When you write a blog to try to rank on Google, you're trying to jam as many keywords in there as possible, and you're just trying to jam as much information in there as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas on YouTube, you're really trying to write more of a story that's like emotional and story driven. So I had to find a way to take this pool of, genuinely good writers, but they just haven't been trained in YouTube videos, and put them through some kind of like SOP or process to train them to write my YouTube videos. So what I did was I analyzed all my videos that did really well, and I realized that most of my videos, the really successful ones, they all follow relatively the same format. We have a hook, and then we tell the story in a certain way. Maybe we go through the Nestle story chronologically, or instead of that, we just have sections on different interesting things that Nestle has done. Um, so I broke down all my really viral videos. I created templates for it, and then once I had those templates, like just a kind of like almost a fill in the blank kind of thing that they could follow through, then I hired them, had them go through my template, kind of trained them on my process, and that kind of guaranteed that they would write something a lot closer to what I want.
I'm curious if you had this finding. This is something I found was that I was trying to get people to write like me for so long. And then eventually I was like, let me just try a video where they write closer to how they write, but still within my guidelines, and not adjust it at all and see if it does the same. And it relatively did about the same performance. Did you like have that experience? Like, were you super like, this has to sound exactly like Jake Tran's writing style, or?
Yeah, if you try to get it like completely one-to-one with my writing style, it's gonna take forever. And they're probably never gonna get there. So I get like 90% of the way there, and then I'm pretty satisfied.
That makes sense.
And I also give them like general rules of thumb, like, hey, I like to say this phrase written this way, so I can, when I speak it into the microphone, it's a lot easier for me. But yeah, I get like 90% of the way there, and then I'm pretty satisfied.
Do you are you big on like segmenting the edits of the video? Like, this editor does the first minute, this editor does the next 10 minutes, the next editor does the next 10 minutes, or is it usually one person?
Yeah, the secret to how I've been able to pump out so many videos really quickly is I have different editors working on each section of the video. And then at the end, a lead editor takes all their sections and stitches it together. And they're all trained on my editing style. They know like the editing aesthetic that we're going for. So that's why it works. And that's why we can pump out a video like way faster than most channels.
That's interesting. Yeah, I spend a disproportionate amount of time on the first minute of the video. Like, that takes just as long as, even with this podcast, we have these really complex intros, and that probably takes as long or twice as long as the full edit of the podcast, plus the thumbnail, plus like all the mid-form clips and such. But yeah, it's interesting. Do you think Americans are lazy?
I don't think so. Or else we wouldn't have the best country, like with the best companies, the most successful companies.
I guess for employees specifically, compared to like other country workers.
Well, if you paid Americans like $200K a year, then they would be as motivated as someone in the Philippines or whatever.
You think so?
Maybe not as motivated, but pretty close. But on the other hand, not many people can afford to pay $200K per year employees.
That's very true. Yeah. I guess I haven't tried that one out myself. So how do you manage the large amount of employees working on your YouTube channels?
So a lot of people like to have meetings. I hate meetings. So right from the start, I made it a goal to not have any meetings at all. So throughout my entire business, I've probably only had like 2 or 3 meetings with some employees. And that was early on when I didn't really know what I was doing. But I've set up everything in a way where, you know, everyone knows their responsibilities. They know that, hey, when I finish this edit, I'm going to give it to this guy. When I finish this audio, I'm going to give it to this editing team. So everything's streamlined like that to where everything works and I don't have to have any meetings. And when I do have to explain something kind of complex, I'll always record a Loom, like a screen capture. I just use like Loom, the app. And I just explain my thoughts visually, and that kind of gets the point across.
Got it. That Loom has been a lifesaver for me. Like, I think its headline is like no more meetings or something. But it's very true. Okay, so what would you say your software stack is on everything? Are you managing this all on Trello, ClickUp, something like that?
Yeah, for editing, we use Premiere Pro and After Effects from Adobe, like Photoshop for thumbnails. To talk with everyone, we use Slack. But for the first like 2 years of me running my channel with other people, I literally just stuck to Skype, like the free messenger. So I think most people, you can just stick to a free messaging app like WhatsApp to start out. Once it gets too much to manage, then you can move on to Slack, but it does cost more money. For project management, again, I stuck to no project management apps until I couldn't anymore. And then once I did, I tried all the other ones like Monday and whatever. I ended up going with Notion just because everything's customizable. So we use Notion for everything. And then for like the script writing, we just stick with Google Docs, Google Drive for storage.
Got it. And then Frame for like reviews, probably. Gotcha. Okay.
I don't like Frame, but we have to use it.
We just switched to Dropbox Replay. My issue with it was I couldn't use Replay on my phone. So like if I was like on the go, I couldn't like revise any edits or making sure things were happening, and editors weren't getting notifications. And I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. This is slowing us down just that much to where I'm going to switch it back to Frame. But what do you not like about Frame?
It's expensive. The mobile app barely works.
Yeah.
It's just a pain to use.
It's really expensive. Interesting. And then as far as managing your employees, do you speak with them yourself, or do you have like an operator in place for the business?
Yeah, so once we have like too many of like the same person, I think I read this in Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. But once a team surpasses like 4 to 5 people, that becomes too much to manage. So you appoint one of them as a leader, and then you keep the teams around like 4 to 5 people. So that's what I do. Once there's like over 4 video editors, I'll just appoint the best one as the lead video editor, and I just communicate through him, and then he communicates with the rest. Same with the other rows.
Got it. And do you have a person like above all those people that you just talk to, or is that kind of hard to manage?
I think most people should. I still do it myself, just because I kind of know how everything works already.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might have been a mistake I made. I tried to make it to where I just speak to one person and they speak to everyone. But an issue that you find as a creator is like often your employees are excited to work for you. So they kind of want to like have that one-on-one relationship with you. Have you found that to be an issue? Or
I think it would be an issue if I hired fans, but I'm personally not a fan of hiring fans. Have you done that? Is that why?
Yeah, I feel like I've hired a bunch of fans on the editing side, or just like people that see the following and they kind of respect you more than like some other employee. They just don't feel as like personable. But some people have no issue with it at all.
Yeah, I can see that becoming a problem. I think a lot of my employees like that I talk to them directly.
And then how do you hire people? Do you have any hiring secrets for YouTube channels?
Yeah, the big secret is most people, they look at their resume and their cover letter or whatever. I don't look at any of that. I just ask for their top 3 edits, the top 3 things they've written, because that actually shows that they can do it. And then most people hire them right away and then test them out for like a month. I test them out in like a day.
Yeah.
To see if they can actually do it. And then if they can't, I move on to the next applicant. And that just saves everyone time. If it's not the right fit for them, they can move on to a better opportunity for them. And then we get like a better editor too.
That's really interesting. A day. Yeah, I mean, my thing is like if you assign someone an edit and if they can't do it in 24 hours, it's like, should you really be an employee of the company? If you're not going to deliver now, then you're not going to deliver later.
Exactly.
Are you hiring from like Indeed, LinkedIn, Online Jobs, PH, Facebook groups, Reddit?
My favorite has always been LinkedIn and Upwork.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I found the most successful with those.
And you're hiring international on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, you can make a job post on LinkedIn.
And then would you say you're bigger on like hiring fast or firing fast?
Both.
Gotcha.
Yeah, every time I've given an employee like a second chance where they like mess up on something, it never ends well. So I think, the faster they get to a better opportunity that fits them better, the better for them and the better for us too. So yeah, hire fast and fire fast.
Something I saw from you, it was you don't believe analytics matter when a video goes viral.
Yeah, so everyone talks about, click-through rate and watch time, how many people click on a thumbnail, and how long they watch. But I think YouTube's AI is way more complex than that. I think there's a lot more factors. I think they take in everything from, like if you're watching the video, if you're like scrolling to the comments or like scrolling to the other videos, you're not actually engaging with the video. Because I've had videos with really good click-through rate and watch time, but they don't really take off. But other videos where I can just feel the videos more, it connects with viewers more. People just like it more. They're engaging more. Those videos take off even if the click-through rate and watch time is not as good. So I think, with our brand now, I've learned more about the Amazon algorithm. I think YouTube's algorithm is just as complicated as Amazon or Google or OpenAI, where they take in way more than you think. Like what you're looking at on the screen, where your mouse is going, commenting, likes, etc. I think that all plays a factor.
It's really interesting. What other parts of that, like what have you learned about Amazon's algorithm? Have there been any unique things that you're like, oh, I didn't know they looked at that?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, there's 2 worlds on YouTube, SEO, trying to rank for keywords, and trying to go viral. Amazon is pretty much exactly the same as like the SEO world on YouTube, where on YouTube you're trying to find keywords that have high search volume a month, like 10,000 searches a month with low competition, so you can easily rank to the top position. And if you rank to the top position, you can capture a lot of those searches to your video, and you get like passive views every month. Amazon's the exact same way, where the whole goal to start out is you find keywords with high traffic, low competition, and if you make a genuinely good product with like a good hero image, a lot of people will click on it. It will naturally rank to the top, and you'll capture a lot of those sales.
In your experience, having worked with like new and upcoming YouTube channels and people asking for advice, like what's the biggest lever people aren't utilizing? Are they not working on their thumbnails enough? Are they not working on their ideas enough? The channel concept to start out with, what would you say it is?
Yeah, I think everyone focuses on the video editing way too much. Obviously, the video itself has to be good, but I think most people are putting like 90% of their effort into the video, and then at the last 10%, they finally work on the title thumbnail, and then they wonder why it bombs. Whereas I think it should be like 50-50. 50% of your effort should be first spent on the channel idea, the video idea, the title thumbnail, and then the second half you should actually spend on the video. Because if the foundation isn't there, if the channel idea isn't good, if your channel isn't different enough from the other channels in your niche, and then if your video idea is kind of generic, or it's been something that's covered on YouTube a bunch and you don't have a new angle to it, if your title thumbnail isn't good, no one's going to click on it, so no one's going to watch your video. So I think people should put way more effort into the channel idea, video idea, title thumbnail first, and then you actually work on the video.
What advice would you have for thumbnails?
The best advice is literally just copying other successful thumbnails and titles, as long as it's not from direct competitors. So if you're in the finance niche, try not to copy a title thumbnail from another famous finance channel, because people have already seen that, and you're just going to look like you're copying them. But if you take a really viral title thumbnail from a different niche, now you have something that you know works, that's been proven to work. And since you took it from a different niche, people in your audience in your niche has not seen it yet. So it's going to look both effective and different in your niche. And people might think it's weird to like copy titles and thumbnails, like I want to create it myself. But every big YouTuber, every big channel owner copies titles and thumbnails from other channels. You see it all the time. So if they're copying from other channels, you should definitely be copying from other channels.
Yeah, and the shocking part about this is, where do they copy, like big YouTubers, where do they copy their videos from? It's like small channels, usually. Like they find like an outlier.
Yeah.
Like when you look at a successful thing to copy, it's not a channel that averages 10 million views per video and you just pick one of those videos. It's a channel that averages 400 views per video and they got one that randomly has 300,000 views. You know, it's like, okay, that's a really good one because no one has ever seen this channel before. So obviously it went well in the algorithm. What's kind of your process for identifying outliers?
So I know a lot of people use that Outlier app. I use it sometimes to get like title thumbnail ideas. For video ideas itself, like what video I create next, it's kind of a mix. Now, a lot of people recommend me ideas like in my network, like they just like my channel, so they have like some idea. And sometimes I get really good ideas from that. A lot of times I get good ideas just from scrolling other social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, etc. I find some idea that works well on the food channel or whatever. And other times, if I get a really good idea, there's like two criteria for me. Number one, if the video idea has never been covered on YouTube yet, then I can just make like a general overview video of it and I'll be good. But if it's an idea that has already been covered on YouTube a lot, like let's say I've made a video on Epstein already, so I can't just, and I want to make another one, but I can't just make the same video. So I have to find a new angle to the story. So originally I made like an overview video of Epstein, and then when I wanted to make another one, I made a video on how initially he made his money with a Ponzi scheme. So I focused on that angle of the video idea. So same kind of topic, completely different angle.
So you take something viral and then kind of twist it to a new angle. It's interesting. Yeah. You said the Outlier app? What is that?
Yeah, it's called 1 of 10.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that one. Have you used like the Mr. Beast one? I can't remember the name of it. View Stats.
I didn't even know he had one.
Yeah. It's pretty good stuff. You can like search thumbnails by like text in the thumbnail or like what is in the thumbnail. I guess the thumbnails themselves, like what's the design process? Like, do you just have one thumbnail guy or is it like a bunch of people always trialing out or?
Yeah, I have a few different thumbnail designers, and then I just pick the best one. I give them all the same set of instructions, like, hey, this video is about this. Maybe we should have this in the thumbnail. The text should probably be this. And then whoever makes the best one, I use that one.
Do you split test those?
Sometimes, but I don't really do that very often.
Me either. Yeah.
Because if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, I change the thumbnail right then and there.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And my secret of thumbnails is, you know, when you're scrolling YouTube yourself or scrolling TikTok or whatever, typically you're not like over intellectualizing it. Typically your brain is turned half off and you're kind of just trying to find a video that will distract you. So when I evaluate a thumbnail and title, I do the same thing. I try to put my brain in that same half turned off state. And I just see if it piques my brain's interests. If it piques my like primitive brain's interests. And if it does, I know that's the one. If it doesn't, I keep trying out like a different thumbnail.
That's one of the best pieces of advice I've heard you say in previous interviews. That's something I realized myself. I was like, I'm too biased because these are my videos. Like to be able to watch this from an outside perspective, honestly just got pretty drunk and like watched one of my videos and I was like, I get it. I understand what people see now. And it's like, okay, like people don't even care about this part of the video. They only care about this thing, you know? So yeah, just doing something, I don't recommend alcohol, guys, to get yourself in a mental state where you're a little less interested in yourself, like the interest level that other people would be in you naturally. Social media and be like, why was my interest piqued by this thumbnail or this title or this video? Like, why did I stop scrolling? Do you look at comments a lot?
I usually just look at the top ones just to get a general sense of how people feel about the video. But I definitely don't like read all of them because I think I'm better at not letting them get to me, but I am still human at the end of the day. So like some comments will still get to me sometimes. So I just avoid looking at all of them.
Do you use them as kind of a feedback loop? I noticed on YouTube it's a bit different, but TikTok or Instagram Reels, for instance, like they'll directly tell you why the video went viral pretty much every single time, or they'll tell you like why the video is bad. But YouTube, it's kind of like a different discussion. Is it helpful to look at YouTube comments to go viral?
It's good to get a general sense of how your audience is reacting to the video, like how they like it. But like analyzing like for future viral video ideas, probably not.
So how do you, like if you have a video that flops, it's a 10 out of 10, meaning it's the worst performing in the last 10 videos, like what's your next course of action? Just different thumbnails, different ideas?
If I know the video itself is good, and I've gotten pretty good at like telling if it's like genuinely good or not, then yeah, the title thumbnail is probably the problem. So I'll try to come up with a brand new one. And half of the time, you change the title thumbnail to a better one. And after a few days, after a few weeks, it starts picking up again. If I know the video itself is like not the best, then I know to not do whatever mistake I made again on a future upload.
Something I wanted to ask about the emotion side. Is there like an emotion, a human emotion that you typically try to trigger in your content? Like, do you have like a go-to emotion like fear, anxiety, like anything like that?
I mean, the stuff I talk about is pretty dark. So it's like usually like the darker emotions. And a lot of people call my channel like conspiracy. I don't think they're conspiracies. I think most of the stuff I talk about is very true. But kind of that conspiracy emotion, whatever you want to call that, of like questioning authority and stuff. That's what I would say.
What are the best niches for making money on YouTube in 2025?
I think everyone tries to find like the most profitable niche or whatever. It's always going to be finance and like crypto and investing and stuff like that. But if you're not genuinely interested in those things, it doesn't really matter because you're going to go into that niche chasing the money and then you're going to give up after a few uploads because you're not actually interested in it. So what I believe is the most profitable niche is the one you're genuinely interested in because, you know, my channel is not the most profitable niche. It's like actually pretty average in terms of like how much money you make from ads, but I still make more money than most channels out there because I'm actually interested in it to where, you know, making videos about this stuff, it was stuff I was gonna want to learn about anyways. So I think as long as you're not in a niche that gets demonetized, where you're like talking about drugs or you have to show like real war footage or violent footage, then as long as you're genuinely interested in it, you can make a lot of money.
And would you say the interest is kind of important because, like, say you read about conspiracy theories all the time and you find a video about a new one, you'll kind of know like that it's novel and unique because you've read so many before. So you kind of gauge that other people have interest in it. Is that kind of the thought behind picking something that you like?
Definitely, that's another huge benefit where if you're the same as your audience, then you kind of know what they like and you're kind of tapped into the community and what's happening and you know what's unique, just like you said.
And then I guess your video ideas now on the main channel, are those pulled from, like you said, you look at outliers. Is that looking at other channels and looking at their thumbnail? Is it looking at the ideas? You said it's other platforms sometimes.
Yeah, it's mainly other platforms and people recommending me ideas. Because I found that if you try to find video ideas from YouTube, you're naturally going to look at other channels in your niche. And if you copy other channels in your niche, you're going to come off exactly like them. And whenever I tried copying other channels in my niche, it never ends well because you just don't come off different enough. And I think the whole name of the game is being different. Because most people try to go into, like they watch the finance niche, they really like it. So they try to copy a channel in the finance niche. But if you do that, you're not giving viewers an inherent reason to watch your videos over theirs. So the easiest way to be different is to just not get your ideas from the same exact channels that you're kind of competing against.
What's the most money you've made from a YouTube video?
The most I've made from a single video? Probably 80K, 90K, probably around there.
And how many views did that video get?
I don't remember. Maybe a million? Yeah, I'm not
Million
sure.
views?
Yeah.
Why were the CPM so high?
Yeah, I made some money with ads, but it was mainly like with sponsor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the sponsor paid a lot.
Okay, so the sponsor kind of covered the video.
Yeah.
You can't say the name of the sponsor, I'm guessing. What
Definitely
kind of
not.
niche? What was it, like finance niche or?
Yeah, it was probably finance. And yeah, we're like contractually obligated not to reveal the price of sponsors.
Is that kind of why you decided to launch your own product? Because you saw that these sponsors were paying you at, that you could kind of have your own thing and make more money than the YouTube AdSense?
That's definitely one reason. So when I made the Evil Food Supply channel, I was thinking about how to monetize it. And on top of that, me personally, I was looking for an all-natural moisturizer because I was tired of using lotions from everything I learned about the industry. So I saw that beef tallow bombs were starting to pick up. Like a friend recommended that I look into it. I used it myself. I liked it, but I saw like gaps on the marketplace with beef tallow bombs. So I set out to create a better one with better branding and everything. So that's kind of how that came about. And on top of that, yeah, I also saw that, dealing with sponsors is great. They pay you a lot of money up front, but I wasn't building any equity. And so I thought, why not have like a different income stream where I kind of get the best of both worlds? Like I still deal with sponsors, but I'm still promoting my own thing too.
Would you say that the channel has been responsible for the majority of sales for this? Or would you say it's been like things like Amazon, FBA, rankings, TikTok shop, that kind of thing?
I think, me having the Evil Food Supply channel and us having this really good brand story of like, hey, we have this really official YouTube channel. The branding of the product matches the channel. We have that brand story there. The design of the product being good itself, that definitely gave it a super big jump start. And then all the other stuff we do with Amazon, that kind of like took it off the ground from there.
And then it's a good product because recurring buy, of course. Do you plan on getting it in stores or?
Maybe in a year or two, but not right now. Yeah, we're just focusing with e-commerce for now.
We'll stop talking about money in a second. I swear I have a few more about it. But can you kind of give me the breakdown of what the financials look like right now in terms of sponsors, AdSense? I know you're in the info business as well. You have CPG products.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of the breakdown in percentage?
In terms of like raw revenue, that definitely makes the most. But I have other investors in it, and we're reinvesting all the cash. So I actually don't get much cash from Evil Goods.
This is your highest performing?
Yeah.
More than the YouTube channels?
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
But again, I actually don't really get much money in my pocket.
Yeah.
So it's more of like an equity play. Yeah, info sponsors is probably next. And then YouTube ads after that.
Cool. Can you say how much revenue this has been doing, or is that kind of under wraps?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you have any advice to anyone launching a product like this?
Yeah. It's literally just the same as the channel, like how to find a channel idea. You want to look for a gap in the marketplace. And then on top of that, I would go into it knowing that, hey, this is not just like a side hustle thing. It's actually like its own entire business that you need like employees and a team for, and it's going to take up a lot of your mental bandwidth versus like, hey, I'm going to launch my own little t-shirt brand or something like that. It's definitely its own separate entire business that requires a lot of brain power. Other than that, yeah, finding a gap in the marketplace, like if you want to go into supplements or some health product or whatever it is, you want to buy all the products that you're going to be competing against. You want to write down exactly what you like about them, what you don't like about them. And then you want to go to a manufacturer and say, hey, these are the things I want to improve on it. And then on top of that, just like with titles and thumbnails, how they're the entry point into your video, your packaging for your product is also like the entry point into your product, because that's going to be on like the thumbnail on Amazon and whatever, or on Facebook ads or whatever. So that would be my advice.
Were you surprised how like how much the things you've learned about YouTube have kind of correlated to this industry, for instance, or like running Facebook ads? Has that been hard for you, or has it been kind of similar?
I intentionally try to bring as much of my knowledge from YouTube into like Evil Goods, for example. Like my knowledge of like thumbnails, I put that into like the design of the label. So it really, really helped. It was definitely like a major advantage I had. So
yeah, I'm just gonna show this to the audience for a second. It's great packaging. This is one of my favorite products I've seen that's been launched, just in terms of the branding. Was this based on a thumbnail that had done well? Was this made by your thumbnail designers?
It actually was.
That's crazy.
I gave him some like specific instructions, but yeah, it was made by my literally exact same thumbnail designer.
And then was there any other research that kind of went into you picking this product specifically? Like, did you see an uptrend in like Google data that people were buying it more, searching for it more? Was there another product that had done well that wasn't branded as well?
Well, it just so happens that now if you look on Google Trends for beef tallow skincare or whatever, it's at like 100 out of 100. So we got it at what happened to be the perfect time. But in general, I just saw this world of like caring about ingredients and alternative health really starting to pick up. That's why I started the channel in the first place. So I knew this was picking up as well. I saw, beef tallow bombs getting more popular as well. So it wasn't like hard data on like Google Trends or something. I just kind of felt it because I was like following all these Instagram pages and YouTube channels. So I kind of saw where the movement was heading.
Do you see yourself launching more products around this brand of Evil Goods?
Oh yeah, we have a ton of products in the pipeline and they're all going to be really good. I can't wait.
Yeah, and they're all going to be health related, or do you see yourself ever launching any different types of things?
Probably just this for now, because again, it's like its own whole thing. It takes up a lot of my mental bandwidth right now. So one of the books that changed my life was called The One Thing, where you should only put all your effort into one thing versus like spreading it out amongst a bunch of other things and getting like mediocre results. So for like product stuff, I'm gonna stick with this and go all in.
I was going to ask you about the one thing originally, like what is the one thing that's holding you back from 10xing the YouTube channels? But given that this kind of seems like your focus right now, what would you say is the one thing that holds you back from like 10xing the revenue on this business?
I think we're actually on like a pretty good track, and we have like a CEO in place. My business partner, he's built a ton of successful Amazon brands before. So like raw hours wise, I actually don't put many hours into this either. But it's just like, worrying about it all the time and stuff.
Yeah. So just time would be the answer. Like you think it'll happen eventually?
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Okay. And then I guess I just want to ask you, like, what was the process of kind of getting into the CPG space from YouTube, like not knowing much about it? Like, where did you go to kind of learn? Did your mentors help you? I know your business partner's here.
Yeah. So my business partner, so his name's Rob the Bank.
Yeah. I know Rob. He works with my friend who has a CPG product as well.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So we've been friends for a few years. He also watched my channel before, and he was a really big fan of it. So he ended up reaching out. He ended up sponsoring a video for his old supplement brand on my channel. So that's kind of how our relationship developed. And we always wanted to work together before on some kind of e-commerce brand, but the right opportunity never came about. So once I came across this beef tallow bomb thing, I knew I wanted to create some kind of product, So he has like a mentorship program. I just literally went through it and just did what he said. I Googled skincare manufacturers. I cold emailed a ton of them. A few got back to me. I went
How many did you email?
probably 50.
50. Okay.
Yeah, probably around 50. And yeah, some of them messaged back. And then I got the product developed. And I showed it to Rob. He really liked it. And he could see like where my head was at. So he decided to invest. And now his team runs the day-to-day operations. And I kind of just handle product development, like developing new products and the overall branding of it. Yeah. And one thing I've realized is that I'm still really glad that I'm still doing like the Faceless channel stuff, because with Faceless channels you get cash right away. It's very cash flow heavy. But with
this is a multiple game.
Yeah, I don't really get any cash from it. So I'm glad that I have both things working for me. So that's why even though I have this, I still love running my Faceless channels. I still love making videos. So yeah.
How much money like did you have to make before you got to the point where you started thinking in terms of equity rather than cash flow? Because it seems like you're buying other channels, investing in products like this.
Yeah. After I started making like 100K a month, and that's amazing. That's like 1.2 mil a year. Some months I was making like 200K a month, 300K a month. But if you want to get past that, you really need like something else. Like Faceless channels, they're great for getting started, making your first 10K, 20K a month, 100K a month. But once you get to like 100K a month, what's going to be the next thing? Yeah.
That makes sense. That's cool. What's your goal with this product? Like, what would you like to sell for eventually?
I'm gonna keep that under wraps, but
under wraps.
Yeah.
Or I guess, what's your goal, like net worth overall?
Net worth?
Yeah.
Like 40 to 100 mil would be nice.
Would you be done after then, or do you think you'd keep working?
I think I'll be done after then, but who knows? Maybe I'll fall into that trap of like trying to go for the next big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's hard to know until you get there, I guess. Maybe we'll talk about the mentorship program you're doing a bit. Are you afraid that revealing your system for doing things could potentially hurt your channel?
For a while, I had that scarcity mindset, but then I wanted to invest in channels and buy channels and stuff. And the best way to do that is to, invest and buy channels where the channel owner has been trained in my ideology, in my system. So that's why I literally just give away everything I do. Like all the stuff we talked about before.
Yeah.
I kind of just give it all away to them.
And with that, do you just give them funding to like hire the team? Do you actually use your team for the channels? Do you advise them like coaching?
Yeah.
That's kind of the process.
Yeah, so it starts with just me advising them. And then if it takes off, maybe we'll find a way to partner together where either I invest money or I just partner with them and help them scale it up. So yeah.
Would you ever sell your YouTube channel?
I thought about it before, and right now, no. Maybe if, we sell evil goods, maybe I sell like the evil food supply channel with it, but the Jake Tran channel, I would probably have to keep working for whoever buys the channel because it's kind of tied to my name and face and voice. So that's why if you're not like super dead set on using your name, face, and voice, that's why I do encourage making a branded channel, kind of like Evil Food Supply. It just offers you a lot more flexibility too.
So anyone making a new channel, they should likely not use their voice, so it's not tied to them.
If they make a branded channel where the channel isn't named after them, they can start with their voice and then change it out later. But if the channel's named after them, like Jake Tran or whatever, it's going to be hard to do that in the future.
What opportunities does not using your face limit you from with a faceless channel?
Yeah, the benefit is if you want to grow your personal brand, it's a great way because you can just use your voice. You don't have to show up on camera. So it's a lot easier on you where you still grow your personal brand, kind of like I did. The downside is obviously it just takes up more of your time and you can never change it after. So you're kind of like stuck with it.
What benefits have you seen from going from faceless channels to developing your personal brand?
What benefits? I think the biggest benefit is just the network I've built. Yeah, I've just met like the coolest people ever. I have like the coolest friend group ever, I think. Opportunities to meet people like you or the Andrew Schultz gang. And just like business opportunities that have come from that. Like my business partner, Rob, the bank, met me through my channel and stuff. So yeah,
Jake, what were you like in high school?
I was like a complete loner. I had pretty much no friends. I was always alone. I never felt like I fitted in. And like I never felt like I fit in with the nerds, with the cool kids, definitely not with like the troublemakers. So I was kind of just always alone, and I really, really hated K through 12. It was just not an enjoyable experience. But I think that ended up benefiting me because I think when you don't have friends, then you're not worried about social pressure. And I think people underestimate just how much social pressure plays into the actions they take. Like most people, they're so scared to go after their dreams or start that business just because they're afraid of what their friends would think. And that's pretty crazy to think about, that you're going to limit your entire life and your entire potential just because you don't want to look weird to your friends. So I think that's one benefit I had to not having friends and growing up as a loner. It just wasn't as weird for me to like start a YouTube channel.
And then now you've kind of expanded your friend group a bit?
Yeah, through YouTube, now I think I have like the coolest friend group ever. And I think they're like the best friends I could have ever wished for. Like we push each other. It's like we push each other to grow. Yeah, I'm very, very grateful for them.
Yeah, that's good advice generally, I'd say, is high school, middle school, grade school isn't really the time for making friends because they might hold you back from pursuing other things. But when you're adult, it's a good time to make friends if those people are doing similar, like awesome things like you are. I'm kind of guessing that's the case. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess a lot of these guys that have become really successful were like loners in high school and they never got judged for it.
Yeah, same thing with Mr. Beast. Same thing, I think, with a lot of really successful people.
What's been the most expensive purchase you've made since starting your YouTube channel?
Oh, this watch.
The watch?
Yeah.
How much is that watch?
This was like $90K. Yeah.
90K?
Yeah.
I thought I'd read that maybe you bought your parents a house.
Yeah, but that was on a mortgage. So, I pay the down payment, I make the monthly payments, but like raw cash, probably this watch.
Tell me the story about buying them the house.
I think I was like 24. Yeah, around this time I became a millionaire. And they always wanted a new house. So on top of that, I think I wanted like to park my money somewhere or something. So I decided to buy it for them. And yeah, they were very grateful. Brand new construction. Yeah.
Are they kind of surprised at your success? Like what do they do for a living, if you don't mind saying?
Yeah, my dad, he used to work for the US government. Just like a pretty average paying middle class job in the US government. My mom, as any Vietnamese woman is, worked at a nail salon.
Nice.
So my dad had like a small pension from the government, but my mom didn't have any retirement money. So when they would retire, they would be like effectively under the poverty line, whatever that number is. I looked it up once. So they always bought into the dream of me going to college, that typical immigrant fantasy, and becoming like an engineer or a doctor. My dad was surprisingly okay with me going into YouTube. I was very surprised by that. But my mom, she was like super shocked and disappointed when I quit my job and everything for YouTube. But, once the money starts coming in, then she's completely bought into it. Yeah, I don't think I think they like mostly understand what I do now. And they're like super, super happy about it. They couldn't be happier.
Is your mom still working or?
No, they're both retired.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's gotta be a nice feeling. Was that one of your main goals when you started out the channel? Like retire my parents or buy them a house or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely retire my parents. The house kind of just came about. And because I knew, like growing up, they would always hammer me about like how you gotta make money. You gotta make money, Jake. And I saw how hard they worked, and I knew they wouldn't have much money to retire. So that was definitely a really big driving factor because my parents are a little older. They had me when they were a little bit older. So I knew they didn't have many years left to work. So the clock was ticking for me.
Or did you kind of hold off on any materialistic purchases until you retired them?
Definitely. Yeah, I went a pretty long time before buying a new car. Just because I knew the money was better spent going to them, like buying them a house and stuff like that. I've always wanted a supercar, but I still haven't bought one yet, even though I can. So stuff like that.
Yeah, that's pretty surprising to me how many entrepreneur guys you see that are young, like buying Lamborghinis and nice watches and stuff. And I'm like, Have you given any money to your parents? Like, is your mom still working a job? It's just a really interesting use of funds. But to each their own, I guess. Have you bought anything else material besides the watch?
This is like the biggest thing, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Because I feel like you're in a position where you could be getting really grandeur things.
I went through a pretty long period where I was a complete minimalist. I went for like a year without having a house and just nomading around. And I saw that material possessions would hold you down and like slow you down. So I really wanted that freedom as I was kind of growing the business. Now I'm starting to get like more possessions, but that was kind of my original rationale. Because I knew that every expensive thing you bought, it takes up like a small portion of your mind, a small portion of your mental space. Like if you travel and you have like a really expensive car, you're gonna worry about that car as you travel, or like worry about the expensive house and like if something breaks or something like that. So that's actually why even today, even though I can't afford it, I still rent my house. I still lease my car, just because I don't want to own stuff if I can help it.
That's interesting. I think that's really good advice that I personally subscribe to. I've never got a car. I always Uber around because I like don't want I want the ability to work, one, and I don't want to have to worry about a car and worry about the payments with it. I also rent, which was really nice during the LA wildfires because I was like, oh, I hope my place doesn't get taken out. What AI tools do you use to make content?
Yeah, so ChatGPT has definitely sped up some process of the research. Like if I need a really specific fact that would take me like 10, 20 minutes to look it up myself. For example, we're working on a video on artificial food dyes for the Evil Food Supply channel. And I needed to know when these dyes were banned in Europe specifically, in different countries. And it just spit out the answers right away versus if me or my writer were to research that ourselves, it would have taken like 10, 20 minutes. So that definitely speeds up some process of the research. It doesn't do everything yet. And then we also use Midjourney for parts of our thumbnail. Like if we have to create like a specific character for the thumbnail, we'll use that. And that's really all we use for AI for now.
Interesting. Yeah, do you use it for the editing at all?
I haven't found a good AI tool for editing yet.
Or I guess for the assets specifically, like do you use Midjourney assets?
Oh yeah, sometimes we use Midjourney assets for like specific parts of the animation. And I haven't messed around with Sora yet, OpenAI Sora, but I'm gonna mess around with it soon.
We just played with it last week. We did a video about someone talking about shrooms, and we're like making shroom type asset visuals. It's really interesting. But yeah, do you think like how do you think faceless channels will change as AI advances?
I think you're seeing it right now in general with AI, where the team size can get smaller. Whereas you needed like a few people on your team to do this thing. Now you can do it with just one single person. So I think, as it stands right now, I don't think humans will be eliminated from the process, but it will reduce team size and how much money you have to spend to make something drastically. So I think that's better for people to start out on their own. So it'll make everything easier to start out on your own. And I think the part, at least right now, that AI can't replace is, hey, what video am I going to make next? Like you still have to make that creative decision, just like you decide on what guests you have next. And that kind of determines the direction and the brand of your channel. So I think that part, at least right now, will not be replaced.
And it's good motivation for people to start as well, because if the only thing AI won't be able to replace is the idea, the only way you're going to get better at ideas is making content,
Exactly.
Has that been mostly true for you? Or has there been any like things you've discovered about the actual ideation? Or has it just been putting in the reps on videos?
Part of it's putting in the reps. Part of it is just having the right framework to follow. Like what I mentioned earlier, like you have one of two types of video ideas. One is something that hasn't been covered on YouTube yet, which makes your life a lot easier. If it has been covered on YouTube yet by a bunch of channels, then you have to find a different angle. So having that right framework definitely shortcuts like months of progress.
Your most recent series talks about the enslavement of the middle class. I'm sure you could speak about this like endlessly, but how does the government keep us poor? Or what's a secret method the government uses to keep us poor?
Yeah, so you have to think about it from a politician's perspective. So America is mostly run by a bunch of people that will get fired after like 2 or 4 years, um, if they don't do a good job. So how do they get fired? Well, if the economy is doing bad, if people can't afford food, or like inflation is too high or whatever, or there's no economic growth and no new jobs, then they're gonna get voted out of office. So they're incentivized, like their main incentive as politicians is to increase economic growth. That's why they talk about it all the time on the news and whatever. Um, and the way you increase economic growth is by keeping the masses working. Because when Sally wakes up and delivers your food, if Joe wakes up and fixes your plumbing, that's what actually increases economic growth, is by keeping the masses working. So that's why they're incentivized to do things like promote mortgages, where you have to pay off your home after 30 years, and the first few years, you're mainly paying interest to the banks. And then since on average, people move every 5 to 7 years, every 5 to 7 years, they're going to get a new mortgage that restarts the whole amortization process, where they're just paying interest to the banks again. And that's why most people end up living their entire life in debt, only paying interest to the banks. And by the end, they don't really have much equity in their home. And then they just pass on that debt to their kids. And what do you know? The kids have to work for the rest of their lives to keep paying off these debts. So that's one way they keep you in the middle class and keep you down, is through debts, especially with mortgages. Another way is with jobs. So back during Henry Ford's days, jobs were actually like way worse than they are today, where you would have to work these really bad factory jobs, and there were a ton of injuries. You would like lose an arm or a thumb in the factories. You would work for like 16-hour days or whatever it was. And even though that sounds good for the factory owner, Henry Ford noticed that if the workers were treated a little bit better, if they weren't injured all the time, if they had like at least some free time, they would at least be complacent with their job. They would at least be okay with the status quo. Whereas before, factory workers were quitting left and right. They would abandon their position, which would lead to downtime on the factory line. So what Henry Ford did was he proposed this 40-hour work week, which was revolutionary at the time. Before, it was like the standard was like 80 hours or 100 hours a week or whatever. And on top of that, I believe he doubled the pay for factory workers, which was also unheard of for the time. And that way, at least now people were like above water. They were like not rich. They would never have a chance of becoming free, but at least now they were like okay with the status quo. And because he did this, everyone flocked to Ford's factories. There were still a lot of injuries at the time, but and it costed him like $10 million, 50% of his profit for the year. But then his company like instantly increased production. He made way more money in the long run, and that's part of the reason why he became so wealthy. And once he did this, now other factory owners, they had to switch to this 40-hour work week. They had to increase their pay, or else no one would want to work for them. So that's kind of how the 40-hour work week became standard. And this whole 40-hour work week thing, where you keep the masses just above water, where they're not ever going to get free, but they're not suffering too much to where they quit. That's how it's kind of progressed to today, where we're still working in the system.
So give us enough money to be happy, but also give us enough money to like not be able to get out of it. That's really interesting. And that what's interesting is you have taxes on that, and then you have sales tax as well. So it just always increases commerce, but the government always gets a little percentage of it all. What was the most surprising thing you learned about like the way the government keeps us poor while making that documentary? Was there like one bit of information that you read, you were like, wow, I did not know about that?
One realization I've had, not just from this documentary, but as I've noticed it throughout the last few years, is the education system, it was never designed to make you rich. And in fact, it was actually designed for you to not think for yourself. And that's really fundamental, because if you think about it, every ounce of wealth that's ever been created, every progress we've made for humanity, every innovation we've made, every discovery, every story of someone going from like rags to riches, it was all from them thinking for themselves, like literally sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and writing out like, where do I want to go in life? Is my job that I'm working right now actually going to get me there? That raw thinking power is literally what separates us from the animals. It's responsible for like all of our growth. But what do they teach you in school? They teach you not to think for yourself. They teach you to just wait for instructions from the teacher. And then if you follow the instructions exactly without any free thoughts, then you'll get a good grade. And what does that train you for? It trains you exactly for the like factory jobs of the time. And that's exactly what they train you for today. Where once you get out of school, you've been conditioned with this habit of not thinking for yourself so much that you have to, wait for your boss to come up with instructions for you. And then you follow the instructions exactly to the T, and then you get your paycheck. When in reality, if you actually want to improve your life, it requires you to break out of this habit of not thinking for yourself, of waiting for instructions, and actually, taking initiative, not waiting for instructions, but coming up with the instructions yourself.
When was that moment for you?
I can't remember when, but I had this epiphany about just how, thinking, this act of thinking, literally just brainstorming. Because one of the things I did for my channel to come up with like the channel idea for the Jake Tran channel is I literally just read a book, I followed the exercise, and I literally just brainstormed the channel idea out, and that probably took me like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But that act of just thinking for myself and thinking through a problem, that resulted in millions upon millions of dollars.
What exercise was that?
It's from a book called The Blue Ocean Strategy, and it shows you how to go into any crowded industry and carve out your own unique blue ocean, your own unique niche or sub niche. And that's kind of what I adopted into my system for finding channel ideas. So I literally just applied an exercise in that book. And it took me like, 10, 15 minutes of like literally just sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and brainstorming. And whereas I was struggling so much before, I was only working hard, but not thinking through the problem at all. And I got zero progress. But the moment I went through this exercise and I actually used my, brain power of like thinking, that's when like all the money came from that. So I think that was the origins of it. And as I became more successful and I, used this thinking power to solve the next problem, to make more money, and then the next problem, I started to see just how like ridiculous that the school system is, where they really don't teach you this at all.
Would you say you were always a hard worker before doing social media? Like, did you do martial arts years before you started social media?
Yeah, I was always a hard worker just because I grew up in this like, scarcity household. We're like immigrants. My parents are always beating into me like how you got to make money and work hard. So I was always working hard, either in school or in martial arts or whatever. And that definitely just translated well over into business.
Yeah. I think a big thing I've realized is the people that work really hard need to like take a step back and think more. And the people that think all the time just need to do the work and listen to a mentor or listen to something, because they're stuck in this loop of overthinking and overconsumption of content.
Yeah, you definitely need both, like, work hard and think hard.
Yeah. And you need periods, it's like when you worked with Rob and went through his mentorship, it's like, this is a doing period. I do not need to think for myself. But after you complete it all, it's like, okay, let's think of some Jake Tran original thoughts, around how I can carve out my own niche.
Exactly, yeah.
Jake, you've made dozens of videos about the powerful people pulling the strings behind the scenes. Who actually runs the world?
I think, today we live in a society where everything's very polished, everything's very PR friendly. It feels like we've made all this progress, which in some cases we have. But in actuality, human nature, the same human nature that ran like the medieval times and worst times throughout history, they're still present today. Human nature hasn't changed at all. So all the evil stuff they were doing back then is still happening today, maybe in a different form. Maybe it's covered up better. But yeah, everything that's happened before that's bad is still happening today. So, whereas like a few families controlled things pretty overtly back then, today, a few families still control things today, but they just do it in a different way where they like fund politicians, they bribe them in like different ways where it's not overt.
How many families?
How many families? I don't know for sure, but
like 5, 10, hundreds?
I think more than that. Just because there's just so many people out there. And if you think about it, most of the billionaires you see on the Forbes list today, they're all public billionaires that have made their wealth recently. We have all this human history before us where there's been all these wealthy families. They probably still all have their wealth, and it's probably all compounded over the years. Except they're not on the Forbes list because you never heard of them before. So like the people on the Forbes list, most of their wealth is tied to public stock. So it's very easy to track how much money they have. But there's a ton of families out there that own all these properties and all these private companies that you can't really tell how much wealth they have. So there's probably much wealthier families out there with a combined net worth that's way higher than like Elon Musk or whatever. But you don't know about them.
Do you think there are trillionaires?
Yeah. I mean, you just have to look at the Saudi Arabian
for sure.
dynasty to know if they're trillionaires or not.
And wealth is usually divested among many people, not just one person, but it's groups. Okay, who is more powerful than Donald Trump?
That's a good question. I think people in the military-industrial complex. Because at the end of the day, power comes from your potential to inflict violence. And there are probably military commanders that, have maybe more sway over the soldiers than Donald Trump.
Do you think like the heads of 3-letter agencies are more powerful than Donald Trump? Do you think any other government leaders?
I think so. Just because, we see it every day that they can just act with impunity, and we really don't have a way to like fire them, unlike elected officials. So I think there's definitely bureaucrats, officials in the government that are more powerful.
What's a conspiracy you believe in that has like gotten the most backlash?
Gotten the most backlash?
Or just like most people disagree with it, but you're like, that one is the one.
That's a good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I think a fun one that I believe in, that I don't know if it's true or not, is that like the free energy conspiracy where the government and the US Patent Office and the energy companies suppress free energy inventions where you can get like unlimited free energy so that they can keep selling you fossil fuels and stuff. That's a fun one. I don't really know if it's true or not.
Like the guy who made the water-powered car was killed by
stuff
the
like that.
CIA or something.
Yeah.
I think that could be a big one for sure. Do you believe in the moon landing?
Yeah.
Do you believe JFK was assassinated by the CIA?
Yeah.
Well, we're about to find out with the Trump files being released pretty soon.
Yeah, I think there's a potential that NASA may have faked some of the photos just for like press and PR. But I think we definitely landed on the moon.
That's a good theory. Gosh, I've been waiting for someone to say something about that. Yeah, like maybe some of it was in a movie studio, but some of it was like not. That's interesting. Why won't China sell TikTok?
I think it's one of their greatest weapons. Because if you think about the education system in America, it's based off of what's called the Prussian education system. So Prussia was an empire in modern day Germany, and they had invaded Poland back then. And they needed a way to get the Polish people to accept their new German identity, or else they would eventually revolt against their conquerors. So they invented this Prussian education system, where a lot of the stuff you see in the education system today is based off of this Prussian model, where this is where like hour-long classes came about, where instead of you focusing on one skill and really developing it, you just have 1 hour for each subject, and then you're rushed off to the next. This is where teaching certificates came about. Their idea behind it was that if you could educate the kids, then you could wipe out Polish identity within 1 or 2 generations. Because if you can get the kids when they're young, when they're moldable, when they're gullible, you can teach them to be German. And then when they grow up, they accept their German identity and they can't revolt back. There's zero chance of them revolting back. And that's what our education system is based on. And I kind of view TikTok as kind of like a similar weapon, where if you can influence the masses, especially like the kids, then you can influence the future generation, like the direction of America.
And what are they trying to influence us into? Is it Chinese ideals, or is it just a weaker country than them?
Probably both. Because, an entire generation, dancing on TikTok is probably not as good as an entire generation focusing on STEM or whatever. Yeah.
What's the most evil company in the world?
I think if we're talking about like pure evil, then it's probably companies that still use like slavery or forced labor and stuff like that, like a lot in China. If we're talking about like pure evil, that's definitely it. In terms of like masterful manipulation, Nestle is definitely up there with how, they make baby formula to replace mom's breast milk. But mother's breast milk is much more healthy and designed for babies. But theirs is like 40% seed oils or something like that. It's something ridiculous, but all these other terrible ingredients. Everyone should definitely look up like the ingredient label of baby formula. It's absolutely atrocious. But the way they got the public to accept baby formula is, humans, we naturally look up to influencers. Not just like the creator type influencers that we think of today, but doctors, professionals in a lab coat. So they got doctors to recommend baby formula in really poor countries like the Philippines or whatever. So they would have people dress up as nurses, hand out baby formula samples, and they would hand out just enough baby formula to where once they got through that baby formula packet, feeding their kid with it, the mothers would naturally stop producing breast milk. So then they would have to keep buying more baby formula. And that's how they got these mothers hooked on baby formula when it's like literally, it should be like literally a crime to feed your baby this stuff.
Yeah. Is this like Gerber? Or like what's like the brand under it?
I can't remember. It might be Gerber.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure though.
I know Nestle owns like Nestle Crunch Bars,
Yeah.
Gerber Baby, and then like Nesquik. But this is like specific to like baby formula. Were they the first company that did baby formula?
I'm not sure if they're the first, but they definitely popularized it.
Why is recycling a scam?
So, these plastic companies derive from big oil because plastic is made out of big oil. When plastic was first invented and it started picking up, people started having backlash to it where, they thought it was bad for the environment, as they should. And one thing people underestimate is the importance of PR, like public relations, because if the majority of the public is against you, eventually you're going to get taken down somehow, whether legally or your sales are going to go down or whatever. So PR is really important. So these plastic companies knew they were in trouble because people were starting to revolt back against them. This is when the green movement started picking up and the recycle symbol was popularized. So they needed a way to convince the public that buying more plastic was okay, that single-use plastic was also okay. So this recycle symbol that we all know growing up started to become a thing. So they created their own take on the recycling symbol where it basically looks like the same thing, but they call it the resin identification number, where it's literally that same triangle recycle symbol with a number inside of it. And that identified like the type of plastic it was. And they read all these marketing campaigns about how you can just recycle plastic. But in actuality, only like 10% of plastic that you throw into the recycling bin is ever recycled. Because most plastic, they're either too contaminated, it's too dirty to recycle, like the cleaning process would cost way more than just making new plastic, or most plastic is literally just not recyclable at all. So even today, even with all of our efforts to recycle and all these recycling bins everywhere, it's kind of just a giant scam because only 10% of it ever gets recycled, while the rest just goes into landfills and then it ends up costing us more with all this recycling infrastructure. Whereas in reality, the better thing to do is to just like reduce your use of plastic in general, like stop buying so much. So they successfully managed to convince us that plastic is recyclable and that it's okay to use single-use plastic.
I saw that video and I was like, I'll probably get him a glass water bottle. But of course, they gave me the plastic boss ones. Do you only drink out of glass water bottles?
Yeah, and that's more for health reasons because now we're starting to see just how much microplastics are inside of us. So the more you can reduce the amount of plastic you're exposed to, the better. Because not only are microplastics getting into you, but they're endocrine disruptors. So if you like care about having high testosterone and high energy and all these other great things, you should definitely avoid plastic as much as you can. Most of the time, you can't avoid it all the time. Like, At some point, you're gonna come into contact with plastic, but the more you avoid, the better.
Yeah. Like even the receipts when you get something at the grocery store,
Mhm.
you're not supposed to touch them. Yeah, I used to be big on that, but I've just settled for drinking plastic water instead of tap water, I guess for now. Would you say like, have you done any tests on yourself? Are you pretty like religious about that? Like doing like TRT or not TRT, testosterone test, blood test, like making sure you're healthy in that way?
Yeah, so I like to get my hormones and micronutrient levels tested. So hormones being like testosterone and stuff, and then micronutrients being like your vitamins, your minerals, and so on. And that's important because um, these micronutrients, they're the building blocks of hormones like testosterone that control all the vital functions in your body. So if you see like, fat people and they exercise a lot but they can't lose weight, it's usually because their hormones are messed up. They're not taking care of that foundational level thing. So no matter how much they exercise or how healthy they eat, at some point they're gonna get to a point where it's diminishing returns. So I'm pretty big on getting that optimized first because that's like again the foundational level thing that your body needs, and then everything becomes easier once you take care of that. So yeah, and on top of that, because of our food system and how most of our food has like less nutrients these days, no matter where you live, there's going to be some micronutrients that you're deficient in, and the only way you're going to learn what they are is by getting tested, and then you can like supplement accordingly. Like you can like increase the amount of food you eat for this thing. If it's really hard to get nutrients for this specific thing, you can supplement it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's really changed the game for me.
When did you start doing that kind of health journey?
Probably 2-3 years ago.
Have you noticed it's had like a big impact on how you feel, how hard you train, your actual testosterone levels, that kind of thing?
Yeah, my testosterone levels are like really above average.
Like now they are, or they
yeah.
are just naturally?
Now they are.
Okay, interesting.
Especially after I improved it. I think it was like average before, but now it's like really high.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And my main goal was to have unlimited energy throughout the day. And I think I've mostly achieved that. I think I'm like 90% of the way there. Because, if you want to accomplish a lot in life, at the most basic level, you need high energy. And what I mean by that is like you can't feel sluggish throughout the day. You can't feel tired throughout the day. You got to be like always on. So that was my main goal, and I think I accomplished like 90% of that. So I have way more energy. I can do way more stuff. I can accomplish way more. And on top of that, in the gym, I gain muscle a lot better, and I just don't gain as much fat.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's definitely changed the game. I definitely recommend everyone do it.
How often do you get tested? That kind of stuff?
Like once a year. I'm about to get tested again right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you got like your gut biome stuff tested, or is that?
Yeah, before I was having like gut issues. So the nurse practitioner person I go to like analyze my tests, she recommended like this gut biome supplement detox thing. I don't know what it was called, but that really helped.
Why do the ultra wealthy spend millions of dollars on paintings?
It's considered an asset, just like a house is an asset. And then paintings, like other assets, if you pick the right ones, they do go up in value. So it's just another asset class where they can park their money can grow, and on top of that, they can reduce their taxes too, pretty drastically in some cases. That's why there's like entire warehouses where the rich people just pay to store their paintings. They don't even look at them, just because it's like an asset to them.
But it is real. Okay, I was thinking it was something like I have someone paint a painting, get it appraised for $80 million when it's not.
Yes.
And then donate it to a charity.
Yeah.
And get an $80 million write-off. Is that
Yeah.
the kind of function of it?
Yeah, because the art market is so small. Like let's take the stock market for example. You need a lot of money to move a stock or like influence like a big stock. But since the art market is so small, since like literally the amount of people in the art market, like the number of appraisers and number of buyers and sellers is so small, you can easily manipulate it. So yeah, you can have like appraisers over appraise a painting and then donate to charity and get that write-off. And that's what a lot of them do as well.
Chinese millionaires is one. Keep disappearing. Is that still occurring, do you think?
I think they've cracked down on billionaires a lot. So Jack Ma, he was like the richest over there. But then he started to get mouthy and started to speak out against the Chinese Communist Party too much. But if you actually looked at what he said, like what they cracked down on him for, it was nothing controversial. It was just like light criticism. Like we say way worse stuff about our politicians and leaders here in America, but he just gave like a little bit of criticism at a live talk that was like recorded, and just because of that, they kidnapped him. He disappeared for months, and then once he reappeared, I believe he reappeared in like a little local school, giving a talk to students and teachers, and he was like way more humble. So whatever happened to him, it definitely shut him up, and now he's kind of you never even hear about him again. He went from like the most famous man in China, the most richest man in China, to kind of disappearing and almost irrelevant. And since then, I believe China's government has really cracked down on billionaires and the ultra wealthy over there, because like on their social media, they also have like rich people flexing. But if you're, this communist party that's all controlling, you don't want your peasants to feel animosity towards the rich. So they started really cracking down on the rich and social media influencers over there to not flaunt their wealth.
So you can't flex in China, like on Instagram and stuff?
No. And, sometimes I meet like rich Chinese people that are not in China anymore, like traveling. And yeah, they say like over there, the money you make is not actually yours. They can take it at any time. It's really hard to take out your money from the country. So it's really bad over there if you're wealthy.
What's Russia's notorious private military group?
They're called the Wagner Group, and it was ran by this guy Prigozhin. But then he recently, like last year or something, he tried to launch a coup where him and his troops marched to Moscow in like military vehicles, and then magically, sometime later, he got blown up in a plane by accident. So he was definitely assassinated. But they're really interesting because their business model is based off of this original private military company based out of South Africa called Executive Outcomes. And Executive Outcomes, they were based in South Africa, and there were all these former special forces guys that realized that these other governments in Africa, they didn't have any military power, they didn't have any military expertise, and there were all these like revolutions popping up with rebel groups and stuff. So they saw a really big need for offering private military services to these other countries. So they would go to these other African countries who were in trouble. They were like having coups or wars or whatever, and they would pay these really experienced, like these white guys, South African special forces guys, to defeat like the enemy, whoever they were. And in exchange, what they did was really smart. They would broker deals with these countries to get their mines, to get other like these other mineral sources, and they would get like part ownership in these mines, diamond mines, copper mines and stuff, and they would make an absolute killing from it. And they were like the first private military company to really create this business model of like fighting for these countries, but then getting a cut of their resources. And they made like, who knows how much money they made. And this Russian one called the Wagner Group, they adopted that same business model where now they're in Russia. I believe they're in South America as well. And they provide their military services, literally like fighting wars for these countries in exchange for cuts of their natural resources and other local businesses.
What business would you say is the most lucrative after evaluating so many like big corporations?
The most lucrative business.
Is it war?
It's probably businesses that are protected by the government.
Like what?
Where they give you a monopoly, they give you protection, like vaccines, where you can't really sue them because you're protected by the government. What else is profitable?
Yeah, I think Biden pardoned Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Up until 2014 or something. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because since the government has a monopoly on violence, like they're the only ones that can use violence on you. If you can find a business or you can bribe them in a way where they protect you, that's always going to be the most profitable, where they give you that monopoly. Just like, solving homelessness. um, with like $20,000 homeless tents. These companies that are probably friends with the politicians, they get these lucrative contracts. There's no competition, and it's basically just them robbing taxpayer dollars. That's probably like the most profitable.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason real change gets made, in my opinion, is because there's some money behind it and someone's getting a cut, you know?
Yeah.
Like the California wildfires happened, and I'm like, it'll be really interesting to see what projects get developed and how much the governor of California makes from it.
Yeah.
Would you say that's generally true, that like most change in America gets made when it's like money backed that you've seen?
I would say so because these politicians, their campaigns aren't cheap. And what did they get paid being in office? Like $200K in Congress. So it's pretty cheap to buy them. It's pretty affordable to buy them if you're a big corporation, if you have a lot of money to spend. And although you can't really pay them directly, you can donate to their campaign, but there's a campaign donation limit. What they typically do is they'll find ways to benefit the politician indirectly. So if the politician has a brother that runs a construction company, they'll give the construction company business preferential treatment. And then that brother gives the politician like houses or cars that he can use. Because if you think about it, what we're after is usually not actual money. What we're after is what money can buy us, like the house or the yacht or whatever. So it doesn't really matter if the house or the yacht is under your name. If you can use the yacht, if you can ride on the yacht, if you control the yacht, just like you would if your name was actually on the yacht, then you get the same outcome. So that's kind of how bribery, at least in America, works, where you can't be overt with it compared to like a third world country.
Certain platforms that are competitive with TikTok might push a politician to ban the app so their stock shoots up.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not sure if you paid attention to that. It was like Meta was up 30%, I think. Really interesting way legislation plays in. I wanted to ask you, Jake, now that we've gone through some of the conspiracy stuff, and let me know if you think of any more, what does your kind of daily routine look like?
I wake up at probably 8 or 9 a.m. And I've talked about this with my business partner a lot. I don't have a morning routine. I literally just start working. I think morning routines are pretty overrated, where people have to like do 30 minutes or an hour of something just to get to work, because I view willpower as like a phone battery. You start out at 100% at the start of the day and it goes to 0 throughout the day. So if your willpower is limited like that, you should do the most important work, like the one thing that's gonna get you to your goal faster, right at the start, right away. And then like the lower level tasks you can do later in the day. So that's kind of how I structure my day. And then on top of that, I like to think that I've built my own little university, like my own one-person university, where I still learn a lot today. I still pay for coaches. So I'm always learning and improving my skills, because that's what's going to take me to the next level.
Yeah, I saw somewhere that you spend like $10,000 a month on coaching. Is that about accurate? What kind of things are you learning right now?
I got a business mentor. So he gets some cut that I pay him like every month. And then I have like a few different hobbies I'm learning right now. I don't really want to share them publicly right now, but I pay a lot for that stuff. And yeah, just always investing in my skills, because that's what like initially made me a lot of money, and that's what's going to make me like the next level of money and accomplishments and whatever I'm after.
And then you said you're a black belt in Taekwondo and a blue belt in BJJ Jiu-Jitsu. Have you been in a fight before?
Yeah, I did like Taekwondo fights growing up.
Or I guess maybe a street fight.
Oh, street fights. No, actually how it started was I got into like 3 fights in middle school. They were just like stupid school fights. I don't even remember what they were about. I lost like 2 of them. And that's when my dad decided to put me into Taekwondo. And magically, when you start learning martial arts and you start feeling more confident in yourself, you don't really get picked on anymore, and you avoid fights in general. So luckily, I have not been in a fight since, like a real street fight.
Do you think BJJ is more helpful or Taekwondo for a street fight?
Well, I think in general, Taekwondo is actually kind of useless if you don't pair it with something else, because it's only kicks. Um, and that by itself leaves you with a lot of weak points. So I think Taekwondo is great if you pair it with like either boxing or Muay Thai or like some other striking art. That
Would you say Muay Thai is the most helpful?
I think Muay Thai is the best striking art. It's the most brutal. You use all your weapons, knees, elbows.
Have you gotten injured while fighting?
Just small injuries, nothing major. Yeah, I think Muay Thai is the best striking art. And then I definitely think you need to know at least some grappling, whether it's usually like BJJ is the best option or wrestling. And then I also think, like the hand-to-hand stuff is great, but you should also know how to use weapons, like guns, knives.
Yeah, you're big into, what's that martial art called? The gun one.
Wait, is there a name for it? Gunjitsu?
Yeah, something like that. Are you big into that, or are you just big into guns in general?
I view guns as the ultimate martial art because, back then we had the samurai sword and the bow and arrow as like the most efficient weapon for one person, one man. Now we have like the AR-15 and the Glock. So I think as a man, you should know how to protect yourself and the people you love. And the most efficient weapon for that is a gun. So you should know like both striking, grappling, and gunfighting. Maybe that's the word you were looking for. And I want to learn knives next. I don't really know much about knives.
Who's the most impressive person you've ever met?
Probably my business mentor, Arvid. He's like literally the smartest person I've ever met. He's like actually a genius. And just like the way he thinks through problems, I've learned a lot from him.
This could be from him or from anyone. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, the best piece of advice I ever got was that you, like, all the progress, everything you want comes down to you literally just sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and like thinking through the problem. Because how often do we actually do that? Most people like never actually sit down and actually brainstorm what they want or how to get it. And yet this simple act of thinking, of literally just sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and writing through a problem, that's the origin of like every human accomplishment that's ever been made. Because, throughout the school system, we've literally been conditioned not to think at all, to wait for instructions. But if you think about like the factory owner versus you being the factory worker, what are they doing? They're spending their entire time thinking and strategizing about the next move. And that's where all of their success comes from. So that would be my greatest piece of advice, is literally just using your brain more, because most people, like myself before, we only work hard. We think that working hard is what's going to get us there. But if you look at society, a lot of people work hard, and most people are not where they want to be. The janitor works really hard. The school teacher works really hard, and yet they're probably not where they want to be. Because working hard alone is not enough. You have to both work hard and think hard.
I like that. Work hard, think hard. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the times in school that I actually was like told to sit down and think of a solution to a problem, but it was just like free thought, like the only time I can think of doing that is when I was trying to figure out how to cheat on a test or something, and a lot of those kids who cheat typically become really successful.
Yeah, and that's why writing is specifically important, because if I just told you to sit down and think free-handed, your mind is probably going to wander. But writing forces you to think through a problem and stay on track, because you have no other option. And yeah, I think there's a reason why we're not taught anything about finances, anything about making money. We're not even taught about like how to file our taxes in school, because that's not what the purpose of school is for, is to make you a good worker. And a good worker doesn't worry about that stuff.
Awesome. Jake, is there anything you're interested in promoting at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to learn how to make a Faceless channel, I'm looking for channels to invest in. So we've got a great 5-day fast start program where I basically just walk you through everything I've learned over the course of 5 days. I give you pretty much the entire framework, everything I covered today, so that you can start your own Faceless channel and create your own like additional income stream.
And what kinds of things would you talk about in that course material that maybe you didn't go over in this video? Would it just be ultra hyper specific? Is there anything to look forward to there?
Yeah, so what I mentioned before, the chain, like channel idea, video idea, titles, thumbnails, making an actual good video itself, I basically drill into each of those elements and give you like the exact step-by-step framework on how to like find a really good channel idea that stands out. And it's a lot easier than you think. How to find a good video idea, and how to outsource each part of it as well.
Everyone, this has been your guest, Jake Tran. This is the Jack Neel Podcast. And where can people find you?
Jake Tran on YouTube, at Jake Tran on Instagram. Those are like the two main platforms I tend to use. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
I appreciate it, man.